let's go to the header function and let's see what are the things that we need. So as we discussed, we need to have these three attributes that we talked about. One is the minor value label, and the second is the major value label. This initially, if you remember, this had just one UI label called the counter label. So we've changed that to minor value label and major value label. And also, we need to have the counter object itself, a reference to a instance of a counter object in the view controller. So this is what we've declared here. Now, the view controller itself right now knows nothing about the counter class that we just created. So we'll need to let the compiler know that by writing out this line here, at class counter, which is the name of the class. And finally, we'll associate this as a property of the class, so that the getter and setter functions for these for the counter object is automatically created. And the way to do that is to actually write out this line here, at property non-atomic retain. This basically means that we will keep one, we will increment the retain counter by 1 each time we actually get a reference to this object. And there's two parts to this. You got to have this declaration in the header file, and if you go to the implementation file, you have to have this line here, which actually completes the story. At synthesize and give the name of the variable counter object. Alright, so another housekeeping thing, otherwise the compilation will fail, is you gotta import the header file for that counter class, and so that's import counter h. And right, so the last part is actually implementing the view did load callback function, and we'll just uncomment it out because it's already here, and that's where we will actually create the counter object. So let's go back to our design here, and here I just added this little box which we didn't have last time when we came to this screen, but it's basically the callback function that gets called by the framework whenever your view is about to or has finished loading. And that's a good place to actually create any objects that you want to, like this counter object that we want to create and initialize. So let's just do that in that callback function. So this stuff is already there for you. This is already there. All we're doing is we're adding these two pieces of line here. One creates the new counter object. This is a little crazy when you just look at it like that, but the way to read that is you start off by saying counter alloc, which is you're calling the alloc class function on the counter class, and it gives you an instance of a counter object, and you use that and you call the initialize counter on that object. And if you remember when we implemented the initialize counter, what this basically will do is it'll initialize the minor and major values to 0. And finally, you're going to mention, we're calling this auto release, so that this object is automatically cleaned up when it goes out of scope, right? And so that gives you a new counter object here. We will assign it. We will keep a copy of that new counter object in the counter object member attribute, and let this super do whatever it needs to do to complete the loading of the view, right? So that's all the changes we need to do for the view controller, right? At this point of time, let's do a quick build again and see that everything's working okay. Now we'll click on that and we'll see nothing. Nothing is showing up here, so clearly something has gone wrong, right? And well, that's expected, because what we did is we did update the labels in the nib file, but we didn't do the connecting the dots again, like we showed in the last tutorial. So let's go back and fix that. We'll just quit this one out and open up the counter view nib controller. The nib file. All right, so this is this is how the UI looks right now, and we have to connect the dots again because we've changed stuff around. So right click on the left side of the label, and let's delete this one, whatever we had last time. Actually, we had counter label. That was our only UI label that was there on the view, but that's no longer the case, so let's just delete that. New referencing outlet, so let's select that and go to files owner, and we'll say we'll associate it with the major one, this one, right? Good. Let's select the minor one here, and new referencing outlet, and we'll select associated with the minor value label. That's all. Everything else is okay. We've not changed the increment and decrement functions, so we'll just quit it and save on the way out and do a build and run again. Hopefully this time, it should at least do something, right? I mean, it'll show you the labels. All right, we've commented on the code in the increment button handler function, so nothing is really happening. But now we move on to the second part to actually update these counter values as we discussed previously. Alright, so let's quit this and go to our button handler function, which is here, right? All we're going to do here is we will call the increment function on the counter object that we have, right? So to do that, again, open square bracket. This is our object, the counter object, and it's got one function called increment, which we will call. That's it. When the code comes here, it's going to call increment. So let's just go into the counter object increment and see what we are expecting it to happen. What we expect to happen is, a log line should be written out somewhere into the and which says inside increment function. So where is that? Well, that's going to be in your console application. So open up Spotlight here, and this is your console message, and this is where we should be seeing any kind of messages that are outputted by this NSLog function. Okay, now clear this out, click on increment, and you'll see the log message that we're expecting to be seeing actually inside increment function. So okay, so the last part of the show is to basically implement the business logic of the whole incrementing the counters correctly. So let's go to our counter M. What we do is we'll increment the minor value by 10, as we discussed, and then we'll check if the minor value is greater than, or let's say if it's greater than or equal to 100. We gotta do something here, right? We will simply increment the major value, whatever it is right now, by 1, and reset the minor value to 0. That's it. Let's just do a quick logging of the current values once the increment has taken place. So NSLog minor value is %d. Oops. Let's just copy paste that. Major value is whatever the major value is, right? And let's build that and now see if well, no issues. Here's our thing. Let's get our counter application. Our console application up here also. Clear the display and hit on increment. All right. So increment function minor value is 10. Major value is still 0 as we expected. Second click, 20 still 0. 30 still 0. 40 still 0. 50 still 0. Yeah, sometimes it's stuck. 16, 70 still 0. 90 still 0. Right, let's clear the display out, and now when we click on it, yep, the minor value is now back to 0 and the major value is 1. So the logic, very complex logic, is working as we expected it to, right? Now the final part, well, last one was the final, but this is the real final one, is to actually, it'd be nice to actually see that stuff happening up here, right? in the UI itself. Okay, so to update the label, we come back to our increment counter function in the view controller, and the last thing that we did was that we actually incremented the counter object. After we increment it, what we want to do is we want to be able to actually get the incremented values and update the labels. So what we want to do is something like this. Right? You have it all typed out before, so that we can go fast. With a quick walk through the code, here we're basically using counter object, and we get the main value into an integer, and the counter object, the major value also into an integer. Then we use this function to convert from the integer value to a string value, because the UI label is a string object. And so we use string format and get the string representation of the minor value, minor image values. And finally, we just assign the text attribute of those two corresponding labels to the respective string values here. So minor value string, major value string, this stuff. So now we just do a quick build and run. And we can keep the console up also if you want to show, but this time we should see the counter increment in the UI itself. So 0, 10, 0, 20, 0, 30, 0, 40, 0, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 becomes 1, 0, 20, 30, 40 becomes 2, 0, right? So here, so what we've finally done is we've created what we set out to do, a little bit more complicated counter, which is composed of two parts, the minor and the major part, and with the whole business logic of incrementing the counter, restricted to its own model class, which is the counter model class here, right?